across a report on MSN News via Yahoo I think highlights actually a wider problem. I'm going to read out the report. Bear with me, it's just important to have all the details, and I'll try and put a link to the story, although I imagine it can be found on other sources as well. So this is the report. It's by Will Taylor. Drunk veterinary nurse 29 who caused chaos on flight to Turkey spared jail. Okay, so this is the report. A veterinary nurse whose drunken behaviour almost caused a plane to be diverted has been spared jail. Catherine Hayes, 29, started becoming abusive to Thomas Cook crew flying from Manchester to Antalya in Turkey in May last year. A previous hearing at Manchester Magistrates Court heard the Wigan resident who was travelling with her daughter was a nervous flyer and accepted a drink from a friend who bought a bottle of vodka on board. She was told to calm down but continued to be disruptive, swearing and shouting at crew and passengers, who later asked the captain to divert the aircraft and land. Hayes pleaded guilty to being drunk on an aircraft at an earlier hearing and was described as every passenger's worst nightmare by Judge John Edwards on Wednesday. He told her it was only because she was a single mother with a 4-year-old that he was not sending her straight to jail. Prosecutor Eileen Rogers said in a previous hearing that Hayes and her two friends were seen going to the toilet with a beach bag, which crew suspected was used to carry alcohol. The three women were asked to use the toilet individually. Crew members found an empty bottle of vodka where the group sat, removed it, and instructed the trio not to drink further. The court heard all three were thought to be under the influence, and Hayes slurred her words, finding it difficult to understand what a senior member of staff was saying. After a dispute with another passenger, other travellers called crew. Cabin crew approached Miss Hayes and told her to calm down and directed to put her seatbelt on, but she didn't do so, Rogers said. There was another altercation, and other women were trying to calm her down and get her into her seat, but she caused a scratch to one of their faces, and the crew had to intervene again. Passengers asked for the plane to be diverted, but the captain said they were only 40 minutes from Antalya, where police escorted the women off after landing. Donna Smith, a senior member of staff, said in a statement, "This was a worrying incident and we had to contemplate diverting the aircraft. Things became chaotic because of the actions of Catherine, and there were no thoughts or considerations to the effect of the well-being or safety of other passengers on board." Prosecutors said the incident lasted for most of the 4.5 hour journey. Defense lawyer Nicola Johnson said Hayes was deeply remorseful and sorry for her behaviour, which was out of character. I doubt that. She didn't set out to consume alcohol or get herself into this state. She did, Johnson said. She is a nervous flyer. She has only flown once before and is very nervous about long flights. She was stressed and worried about her flight from the outset, and the suspected amount of alcohol must have exacerbated her emotional state. She is the author of her own misfortune. Well, not really, but she's getting off the hook. The court was told on Wednesday that Hayes worked full time and is a sole carer for her daughter because her father left when she became pregnant. She rarely travels, Minshull Street Crown Court in Manchester heard, and social services were satisfied Hayes is a good mother. That's debatable. She was given a 12-month community order with 80 hours unpaid work and told to pay £250 in costs. Judge Edwards said, "It's because of your daughter and only because of her I'm not sending you down the steps. You're every passenger's worst nightmare, or you were on the 18th of May last year. You were, to use your own phrase, out of it. You should be ashamed." Right, a few things to say about this. Firstly, about this specific case, and then the wider subject. Um, there's some practical questions. How did these women get vodka into their bag through the check-in area? I mean, this is a big fallacy in airport security ever since that transatlantic plot of the mid 2000s. I believe it was 2006. You cannot bring liquids on flights. Yet there seems to be this crazy loophole where you can actually go to what's the expression, duty-free services after the check-in area. So it's a complete nonsense, an utter nonsense. It makes no sense. Um, but regardless, you're not meant to bring alcohol, so how that got through security is a question mark that Manchester Airport will need to answer. When I posted the story online, a guy in Bristol mentioned that Bristol Airport have got stricter about allowing drunks on planes. Well, good, but that should be a no-brainer. It should just be an obvious thing. I think that there should be limits on how much people can drink before they get on a plane. I understand if there's a delayed flight, people might be frustrated. They might want to pass the time in a bar or something. But the fact of the matter is, some people can't handle themselves. Now, the judge in this case, Judge John Edwards, claims that it's because she's a single mother that she's escaping jail. Well, the obvious question is, would a single father get the same treatment? You know, feminists are silent when it comes to this sort of double standards. And I do think there is discrepancy in sentencing as far as women are concerned. Um, would a single father get the same treatment? I'm not convinced that he would. Um, I think in the case of a single father, the child would be put into care and the father would do the custodial sentence as he should. Um, I mean, this wasn't just she had a few drinks and she was loud, right? Which would be obnoxious, but she actually assaulted someone. She was being consistently abusive over 4 hours. I mean, the other passengers who paid for the flight, I'm sure they didn't pay to put up with her. Um, People like this, I don't think they change. Um, I think we have a fundamental problem in this country with drunks, with people who cannot control themselves. And I don't even want to say cannot control themselves because that sounds like an excuse. The truth is, they take alcohol knowing that they can't control themselves, so they're entirely responsible. Alcohol is never an excuse. As for being a nervous flyer, pathetic. Pathetic. I mean, what about the other passengers? What about the nerves that would have caused to them when this drunk yob is, making a nuisance of herself? It's disgusting. I think what should have happened, if the argument is against a custodial sentence because she's got a child, I personally think they could have put the child into social care while she was serving her sentence. I think that should have been looked at least. But even if we rule that out, right, for practical reasons, she should be given a lifetime ban for sure. She should never be allowed to fly again. That's her fault. Or at the very least, a very, very, very long ban, say 15 years, something like that. This woman does not deserve to be on public transport. She's a nuisance. And at that altitude, 30,000 feet, it's dangerous. This is more than just being, it's more than antisocial behavior. It is actually dangerous. Um, and I think that needs to be taken into consideration. I think the judgment in this case has been weak. £250 is not that much. It really isn't when you consider the gravity of the offence. I think the fine should have been in the thousands. I think she should have been given a lifetime ban. I think she should have went to prison, but with that rationale, okay, she's not going to prison. At least give her a lifetime ban. I hope Thomas Cook and other airlines take note. I hope every time something like this happens, not just the airline involved, but other airlines take note and say, okay, we're blacklisting that person from they're not allowed to buy a ticket on our flight. And if they turn up at the airport, they refuse to get on board. Um, But anyway, that's this case, so it's pathetic, and she claims she's deeply remorseful. I honestly think someone like her, give her a few uh, cocktails, a few wines, whatever it is she drinks, and all that remorse will go out of the window, and she'll just behave worse than an animal again. Um, and it's always like I think hen parties and stag parties are particularly problematic with this sort of behaviour. But I think this is a real British problem. I'm not saying that you don't get drunks in other parts of the world that cause problems. I'm not saying it's absolutely unique to this country. But I do think we have a serious, serious problem in Britain. There is frankly a lot of selfish shits out there who consume alcohol, and they may be okay people without it, but they consume alcohol and they behave worse than animals. I'm not a Puritan. I like a drink as much as the next man. I've even been merrily drunk. I can honestly, hand on heart, say that I've never got aggressive. I've never got drunk on public transport. I've never, made an ass out of myself in that way. It's It really bothers me because I've been on trains, right, where it's late at night, you're going on a long journey, or you're going back from somewhere, and some drunk's getting bored. They've either come from a football match, or it's a stag do, or a hen do, and they behave like animals. I really look down on such people. I don't mind saying that. I look down on them. I think they're weak. I think they follow the crowd. Okay, behave like an adult. Take some damn self-control and stop being so selfish. So, when she's paid that fine, when she's done the 80 hours of community service, she'll just go on behaving the way she was. She'll be, maybe she thinks she's remorseful because she's been exposed for this, but I honestly don't think such a lenient sentence will change someone like that. Um, in fact, I would have it that she's made the visit some sort of memorial to plane crashes. And I know people will say, oh, but her behavior wouldn't have caused a plane crash. Maybe not, if we want to be technical about it, but I think she really needs to be shamed for what she has done. And it's not good enough to just. This is another example of a weak judgment where the public are powerless. I mean, the other passengers who had to put up with her, if I was on that plane and I was reading this case, I'd be furious. I'd be thinking, well, I've paid whatever it is, £500 return for a flight, which you hope you get from A to B safely, but you also hope it'll be relatively pleasant. And when you have some drunk who is behaving this way, it just ruins it for everyone. I actually think we should adopt air marshals like the American style. Have one or two people in plain clothes who can automatically act and restrain people like this. I would say as soon as you start getting abusive, put them in handcuffs, restrain them. And if they mouth off, gag them. Put tape around their mouth. Let them breathe, of course, but put tape around their mouth. I honestly don't think it's a problem. I honestly would have no, for example, there'd be no human rights issues with that. Let them breathe. Don't, make sure they're comfortable, but restrain them. It's infuriating because I know that this is such a widespread problem that basically every time I get on a train, I think this could happen. Because I don't want to sound paranoid, but it has happened a few times. I think there's a few things should have happened. I think she should have gotten a lifetime ban. I think that the fine should have been much greater so that she really knows the weight of it. £250 is less than the monthly universal credit, right? So she could easily afford that. Um, 80 hours of community service is better than nothing, but I still think it's too lenient. Um, and certainly she should be blacklisted from all airlines. And people like her, she should be made an example of. This isn't about being vindictive and vengeful, it's about public safety. That's actually the fundamental issue here. Even if you want to say, oh, well, she's obnoxious, but it's not really dangerous, that's not true because causing a disruption at that altitude, anything can happen. What if she was to try to force her away in a drunken state out of one of the windows? It's not an exaggeration. Anything can happen at that altitude, and it has, by the way. Plane crashes have been caused by people being disruptive. Not many, but there's a few examples. So I honestly think we should look at the idea of getting some sort of air marshals. Um, Not to be overbearing, it wouldn't be a police state thing. They wouldn't have to do anything. They'd just be traveling as passengers. They'd just be part of the crew, right? And most flights would be trouble free. But when you have that sort of situation, the problem is having cabin stewards. They don't really have much power. They have the power to, do go through the safety procedures and serve food to passengers, but and a practical one is don't serve a clearly drunk passenger any more booze. Um, I don't think she should have got on in the first place, but there you have it. So anyway, there's a lot of things to think about with that. But I just think generally this country um, doesn't take this problem seriously enough. I think that train companies and airline companies need to take a zero tolerance approach to it. I think that there's an issue in terms of train stations with policing on the local town and wear metro. There isn't always staff around when you need them, so there could be an issue with a shortage of actual staff to deal with these situations. And staff should be trained fully in dealing with aggressive people. But I do believe that we are too lenient. Um, and on another issue with this, I think it's another example of where the public are, you know, there's a lack of empowerment there because when judges make such excessively lenient decisions, what power does the public have to hold that to review? None, basically none. Um, so weak judges, time and time again, they issue sentences like this. I mean, he says if it wasn't for your daughter, but that was a choice he made. Um, and he still could have issued a more stringent sentence without the custodial part. He still could have upped that fine. He still could have, increased it, and he didn't. So that to me indicates that there isn't really a deterrent there, not a significant deterrent. I honestly think she'll just get drunk again and behave that way. So I hope that her face is now known to people whom it concerns, i.e., airline companies, so that they just refuse her a ticket, and she's only herself to blame.